I got a taste for blood after my last video, and I was really eager to build something new. I just recently graduated college and moved back to my hometown, so I've been feeling pretty nostalgic and decided to think back to my childhood. Who else was a space kid when they were younger? I know I was. I read this big book of space every night before bed just to remind myself how small my life was in comparison to the vast, vast expanse of the universe. Briefly, I considered making a scale replica of the Comet Observatory from Super Mario Galaxy, but I wasn't sure how I felt about potentially desecrating my favorite Nintendo game, so I changed courses slightly and landed on building an observatory. Despite having been to the Griffith Observatory thrice, I still felt a little too aimless to start building, so I made an incredibly detailed sketch to get me started. Yeah, clearly missed my calling as a civil engineer. It's like I'm looking at a photo-accurate blueprint. Luckily, I found a good Minecraft seed to work in thanks to a particularly helpful Reddit page that had a lot of big mountains to choose from. I started with this one and got to work immediately. Started off by clearing off this mountain peak just enough that I could see a place for this build to go. I then went into my mine palace and made a sketch more accurate to this specific location. Then, like I apparently do in all my creative builds, I laid out an outline for what I was going to build. I assumed this would change significantly once I actually started placing blocks, since I was kinda just winging it. I knew what was going to make or break this build was this goddamn mountain that I was already regretting building on. If I wanted to make this work, I was going to have to terraform the whole thing. And if I wanted to make the observatory blend seamlessly into the landscape, I was going to have to do it first. You have no idea how long that took, even in creative. Never in my life have I more regretted not knowing how to use World Edit. But at least I could say I hand-placed every one of these blocks. It's worth it, I think, just to get this wide-angle shot. Honestly, I'm not even 100% sure how to even describe the approach I took towards this build. I probably should have built the whole structure out of a single block and then gone in with gradients, but apparently the me of 4 months ago had no time for such frivolities while building. I can say though that I really tried to think abstractly about the blocks. I tried to stay away from traditional gradients and chose blocks solely based on vibe? I don't know. I'm recording this audio months after recording these building clips, and honestly sometimes looking through my video clips is like deciphering ancient hieroglyphics. I was also making sure that since the moon would be behind the observatory, that the darker parts would be on this side of the mountain. On the other, I tried to use warmer, brighter shades, since yellows tend to read more like highlights and blues will read more as shadows. I will say, one thing that's not very good about starting a build with a sketch is the pressure to maintain proportion in the actual build. When I'm drawing, I have a nearly endless capacity for detail as I make smaller and smaller marks on a page, but in Minecraft, if you want to build on a player-accessible, smaller scale, there isn't really all that much room for detail. And in the absence of unlimited stair, trapdoor, and half-slab variants, I really have to make the whole size block look good to fit with my gradients. It's definitely frustrating to have a vision in mind and not have the skill to bring it to life, but you know, that's why I keep working at it, so I can get better. Any artists out there in the infinite cyber void will probably understand, but I always feel that one of the best tracks to improve in an art form is to just throw yourself into the deep end and try your best at making something cool with your limited skill set. So here I am, dabbling in a build style I know nothing about and trying to make what I can out of it. But hey, enough about my New Year's resolutions. Can we talk about that calcite though? Because when I opened this Minecraft world to see where I was at with this build, my first thought was, God, that looks absolutely foul. Like, the whole thing is looking kinda rocky at this early point, don't get me wrong, but I genuinely cannot figure out why I thought calcite was darker than the mushroom stem block. I know people in the comments have had alternating opinions on the way I kind of just combine every block texture in the game without care, but this was bad even for me. Once I made things not a total eyesore, I finally started building up the towers so this thing would have some kind of form and not exist only in my nightmares. As I went, I tried to blend the shading a little, making it so the shadows are almost never appearing in a straight line. And once I did all that, it was finally starting to resemble the vision I had at the beginning of this a couple minutes ago for you, but 4 months ago for me. Things were starting to pick up now that I could actually make this look good and I wasn't constantly fighting against my own past decisions to use terrible blocks. I made a block palette for the detailing blocks, wanting it to fit in with the whole light and shadow thing, but still sticking out as an accent color. And then I went ahead and did the roofing on the rectangular building and little rings at the top of each of the towers. When it got time to do the observatory dome, I totally did it perfectly. First try, you can totally trust me, except then, accidentally placed TNT multiple times and then accidentally lit it, so I had to do it again. You know how it is. Started detailing this tower so I could get a feel of what the final build was going to look like, using a mix of chains, hoppers, cobblestone walls, and honestly anything that felt mechanical and fit into the color palette. I began adding in the telescope part to this building, which was basically just creating the indent to show the points of rotation and, that actual telescope. For this next part, I thought about editing out how many times I blew up the telescope with an end crystal before deciding that wouldn't be very real of me. I would never lie to you guys, even by omission. Here's after I rebuild it. And here's where I realized that I put the crystal in the wrong spot. Hey, no worries, right? I can just put water on it before hitting it and then I'm sure it won't cause any damage. And then, I almost made the exact same placement mistake before coming to my senses and finally getting this thing right. Next, I went in and started detailing the little rectangular build, which I won't go into too much detail because honestly it's a lot of the same. Just adding windows, doors, and techie whatever to give these boxes some dimension. I'd love to explain how to do a wizard style roof, but honestly, I just start placing blocks and next thing I know I've woken up in a cold sweat and I'm placing the top spire. I've never watched a tutorial before, so I can only assume this is a genetic skill I inherited from my family. After I decorated this tall tower, it seemed like I only had a few things left to do. Then, as I gazed at my work in progress creation, I felt like it looked a little too lonely up on this mountain. So, very spur of the moment, decided to add in some extra towers to help spice up the silhouette. Not going to show you guys the whole process because honestly, it's the exact same stuff I've been doing, just different heights. The last bit of main structure decorating I did was to add some railings to this bridge so it would follow OSHA regulations. Then, because I think it's a good thing to add to any build, I put a little flag string thing connecting these two towers. Now it was time for finishing touches. I finished the massive terraforming job on this side of the mountain, No, okay, we've had enough of that, I think.
Huh.
I also added in a path and stairs, some foliage, and some custom trees. Also, couldn't forget my favorite silly detail of adding little rocks everywhere. On the inside of the buildings, I put some basic interior stuff because it physically hurts me to leave the insides undecorated, even if my decorations look like absolute crap. The last few candles and potion stands placed, I think I can finally call this build finished. Okay, to me, the video just isn't done until we do a little recap. I feel like I learned a lot from this video, though that's kinda how I feel and what I say with each thing I built on this channel. The saying practice makes perfect definitely has validity, even though I'm nowhere close to achieving perfection. I have discovered that stepping away from a build for some time is good for seeing where you went wrong, looking at you, questionable initial block palette, and that a sketch is a pretty good way to jump into a build without feeling completely overwhelmed by possibilities and also not putting yourself into a box. I do think whatever I build next, I'd really like to focus on building a custom environment because the way things are now, I kind of feel like I was just throwing in the towel because I was ready to be done with this build and post the video. I don't know if it's obvious from my voice, but I have been sick the entire time I've recorded the audio, so my voice is just completely gone at this point. Anyways, that's all for this video. I'm happy to announce that I will finally be moving on from my little MacBook Pro to go to a full-on PC, so hopefully that means some world edit and shaders are in my future. Also, shockingly, I was invited to play Minecraft with other people, so tune back in for my next video where I won't just be sitting in a dark room talking to myself, I'll be sitting in a dark room talking to strangers.